Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Asura at Asura MBTI, and today's video is the answer video to the INTJ Ask Me Anything special I'm doing for my 100 subscriber mark. And again, thank you very much for subscribing to me and allowing me to hit that first little milestone. I'm actually almost at 150 since last week when I posted that video. And I wanted to do a video this past week, but I live on the East Coast and we had about a foot of snow. So for the past 3 or 4 days, my girlfriend and I couldn't get out of the house, and I don't like to record when there's people in the house. And I thought it was so funny. She's an ENFJ, I'm an INTJ, and the difference with the being stuck inside. As an INTJ, I was like, sweet, we're stuck inside for 3 days, and as an ENFJ, she was like, oh no, we're stuck inside for 3 days. I don't know, it was funny. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the questions. I'm going to do 2 or 3 at a time and then fade out and come back in, because if I run my videos too long, the audio and video desync. Alright, let's get started. Alright, I'm going to read some of the questions, and I might shorten a few of them just to make it simpler and give you the main idea of the question. And I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's username. I'm going to do my best to say them accurately. Alright, starting off is Ausmax says and asks, I am an INTJ too, and I want to ask you about something that I noticed. I do feel like INTJs are more interested in the MBTI than any other types. I explained the theory to many people from my surroundings, sometimes explained to them why do they think behave in a certain way, but the only response I usually get is, oh yeah, nice, or something like that. I want to know if you do experience the same thing. And yes, I do, as an INTJ, and I troll around Personality Cafe and Typology Central, the 2 major typology forums, a lot. And one thing that can be said is that usually the I and J types are the most interested in MBTI, or the INT types. You'll find that the stronger introverted intuition or introverted thinking is in an individual, the more interested they usually are in typology theory. That's not to say that the other types aren't going to be interested, because I've met ESFPs who love MBTI, but usually it's going to be more so directed towards the intellectual personality types more so than the outgoing active personality types. And one reason I can say for the INTJ specifically is that the INTJ who has dominant introverted intuition, I'm going to put down a little visual to explain that the axis of introverted intuition and extroverted sensing. Introverted intuition in a very basic form asks the question, why, what is the cause, and what is the effect of anything they come across? And in the INTJ and INFJ, this is our main and primary way of interacting with the world. So we ask why, and we want to know causes and effects behind things. And for a lot of people, MBTI theory is a very strong and backed reason as to the whys and causes and effects of human cognitive functions, of how our mind works. And I think it's because INTJs and INFJs are able to use this in everyday life theory that we tend to be more interested in this topic. All right, thanks for asking the question. All right, Illin H asks, or says, thumbs up for the 100 subs. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the recent US election? And I really hate to be super lame, but I do not care in the slightest about politics at all. And that's probably because I'm a younger male and it really doesn't affect me as an individual much, because I work like a low-end job and I pay my bills, but it doesn't affect me a whole ton, and that's kind of awful to say. I actually didn't vote this past time around. I had no interest in this election. Both of them just looked like people that shouldn't be running the country. No offense, Trump and Hillary. If I had to vote, it probably wouldn't have been for Hillary. One of the main reasons I tell people I don't vote and they go, oh, you didn't vote, is I am not actually educated on politics. So I feel it would be unfair for me to give my vote without actually knowing what I am voting for. And since I don't feel like putting forth the effort to go and study what they're talking about, I'm not going to go vote, because that's like voting for someone because of their face. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like, I'm voting for you because I think you look like a nicer person than the other person, or you look like you might be better at running the country, but I don't actually know your politics or anything you actually do. All right, thanks for asking the question. All right, on to the next. This isn't really like a name, or if it is, I don't know how to pronounce it. So ZXCEEUI asks, what is your heritage? And my father was actually a pure-blood Puerto Rican, and my mother was white from Canada, I believe, with Irish background. My mother passed away when I was 6 years old, and I did not grow up with my father. He lived in the same town, but I grew up with my grandparents. I think some people might get confused with this because I refer to myself as Asura, and that's actually just a handle. That's not actually my real name. My real name is just boring old Chris. But I've always gone by the name Asura for the past couple of years in like games that I play and YouTube and all that. It's just it's my handle. And all right, thanks for asking the question. Okay, Film Things Are Fun says, "Hi, I'm a new subscriber, so if you've covered this already, let me know. I haven't. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the writing styles processes of the MBTI types, particularly the INTJ? Does one type have the advantage over the others when it comes to writing?" I actually haven't studied much into this, but what I can say is I've compared, the only one I've compared to in my life and like actually thought about it was the INTJ and INTP writing process. And that's because a lot of the INTPs I know, especially I'm on Personality Cafe a lot, when they type something or they're giving a response, they tend to do the whole like 10 paragraphs, super detailed, intricate, step-by-step thing, whereas I'm like 2 paragraphs, I've said what I need to say. I've heard that people with extroverted intuition and introverted intuition tend to be more creative in their writing. When it comes to like fiction writing, I probably actually like don't have a ton of information on this one. If I had to guess, I would say that introverted sensing types would probably be very down to earth in their writing. They would probably know the structures and styles of writings very well, more so than other types if they studied, because that tends to be what they do as introverted sensing types. They tend to ground themselves to reality instead of exploring ideas like an ENFP would. All right, thanks for asking the question. I'm sorry I don't know more on that subject than I do, but maybe I'll make a video on it sometimes after I've done some more research. Thanks for asking the question. MBTI Plus asks 2 questions. We'll start with the first one. Most INTJs I have met have trouble getting a good night's sleep. Is this also true for you? I actually didn't know that INTJs have this problem, but it's funny that you say this because I do. I actually suffer from a thing called hypnagogia and hypnagogic hallucinations. And this is a fancy way of saying that my mind doesn't know how to transition from being awake to falling asleep or from being asleep to waking up. And what this causes is you are in a sort of middle of the road kind of space or situation where you're not fully awake or you're not fully asleep, and your mind is awake and your body is not. This often produces sleep paralysis. I usually experience this multiple times a week. It comes and goes for months at a time, but it usually is somewhat frequent in my life. I have experienced sights and sounds that were extremely realistic, and that's the difference between a dream and a hypnagogic hallucination, is that the hypnagogic hallucination is real to the senses. I have felt pain from my sleep hallucinations. Not much, like they're not actually going to hurt me. I've experienced them so much at this point in my life that I can recognize that I am in one and try to wake myself up, but it's usually not that easy. I have awoken to sounds of monsters roaring, and it has continued for up to 20 seconds after me being awake, and that actually causes me to be anxious. My girlfriend's woken me up when I was screaming in my sleep one time. I have sleep problems, but I get over them as best as I can. I didn't know that, though. The second question was, who is your favorite superhero? And my favorite, like, basic superhero would be Batman, just because, I don't know, he's cool. Everyone types him as either an INTJ or INFJ. I'd say INTJ. But if I had to pick, like, a low-key, not mainstream superhero, I'm gonna have to go with One Punch Man, just because he's freaking cool, and I love that show. Alright. Thanks for asking the question, MBTI+. Jacopic, one of those two, asks, what are functions actually? Not how they are defined, not how they manifest, and not how they interact. Well, that's kind of a funny question because it's hard to use without an actual definition, but functions aren't actually a thing. We can't like physically say functions exist, and that's why when I refer to MBTI, I call it MBTI theory. And that's because the MBTI theory was created off of Carl Jung's work and his original viewing of the cognitive functions. Cognitive functions really are just a generalized and categorized way of in which our minds interact with the outside and inner world, and there's no physical way to define that because technically cognitive functions don't exist. They're just something that people who study MBTI theory use in life and relate thought patterns to. All right, that's actually a pretty good question. Thanks for asking. All right, Apple Pie asks, what are new experiences craved by extroverted intuition versus extroverted sensing? And that's actually really interesting because, okay, first of all, extroverted sensing tends to be more in the present, whereas extroverted intuition tends to be more in the future. Extroverted sensing lives by what they are currently physically experiencing in the world around them. They are going to want to experience things that make them feel physically and that are very active and outgoing and fast. They're probably going to want to do more things like roller coasters because that triggers physical sensation. They're going to want to go to parties. They're going to want to do things that are loud. They're going to want to do concerts, things like this. Of course, not all extroverted sensing types. Extroverted intuition is going to be explorative and idea-based. I always relate extroverted intuition, especially dominant extroverted intuitive types, as an adventurer. Like imagine someone playing the game Skyrim. They're going to want to go explore the world for the sake of exploring. They want to see new things. Whereas the extroverted sensing types wants to experience new things that are going to make them physically feel. Extroverted intuitive types want to experience new ideas and learn more about the world that they are in. All right, thanks for asking that question. All right, the next one is by Unfathomable Being, and he asks a few questions actually, and these are some very complicated questions. I had to look into a few things on a few of them. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I didn't get to take a chance to listen to what you asked me to listen to. I've been kind of busy these past couple days with being snowed in and having people in the house, but I will answer what I can. And your first question was, what's your thought on the hopefully impending technological singularity? And for those who don't know what technological singularity is, it's the theory that technology will pretty much become self-empowering. A lot of people use the hypothesis that imagine we build a computer that's smart enough to upgrade itself, and then that computer, which upgraded itself, upgrades itself, and so forth and so forth, until we have a computer that's so strong and so intelligent that it is far beyond human expectations and it can far surpass the human limits of physics that we currently know. And my opinion on this is I guess it's possible. I don't know if like what you're trying to ask here. Are you trying to ask if like you think we'll have human level AI one day? Because if so, I would say yes, I think it is possible. I had this conversation with my girlfriend a couple weeks ago and we were like, that's kind of weird. We were actually talking about the self-driving cars and the morality behind them, how they would deal with like if they're supposed to run off the road and stuff like that. And I think that with how technology has grown in the past 40 years, it's going to be insane 100 years down the road from now. And I don't even like know what to think about that. But I think it is possible. Now, I don't think anything like they're going to take over the world and blah, blah, blah is ever going to happen because, I mean, I guess it's possible, but technically humans are known for having things like EMPs. So if like robots got out of hand, we could just be like, I have a magnet. But no. Anyway, do you have any spiritual, irrational beliefs that you are aware of but compartmentalized from the rest? I assume what you mean by that is, do I have any irrational beliefs that I know are irrational but I still kind of believe them anyway? And the only one I can say when it comes to that is I am a strong believer in luck. And I don't mean like a super mystic kind of luck, but I always, like I go to luck when I say things are going well. I have friends who will call me when they're doing a lottery-based thing and like a game they're playing, who will literally like call me on Skype and be like, all right, you're my good luck charm, you know what to do. I had one time where I was playing a game, and there was an in-game lottery, and I bought 60 lottery tickets. I spent like $15 or $20, and the grand prize had a 0.01 drop rate from each scratch ticket, and with 60 chances, or 30, 60, I don't remember, one of those two, I won 4, and I just blew everyone away because they were just like, that is literally like impossibly lucky. I don't know, I've always thought luck was a thing. And, but that's just me. What else did you say? You said, any favorite non-fiction literature? I actually don't have a ton of favorite non-fiction literature. I have my copy of Gifts Differing by Myers-Briggs lying around. That's pretty much all it is when it comes to nonfiction. I enjoy fiction much more than nonfiction. Usually, if I want to study something in the realm of realism, I tend to have a goal in mind already, and that's very common among the INTJ type. My knowledge is very pinpoint. If I want to know something, there's a reason I want to know it, and then I will aggressively study that. All right, Unfathomable Being, those were some good questions. Thanks for asking. All right, Cold Nobility asks, how do you experience your shadow functions? And while technically shadow functions aren't part of MBTI theory, um, or some people like to refer to shadow functions differently. Some people refer to shadow functions as the opposite functions of the one you use, such as I'm an INTJ, so my shadow type would be ESFP. Some people like to refer to your shadow type as the complete opposite of you, which would be like someone who leads with introverted sensing, I guess. Like, there's different ways people look at shadow functions, but for this example, I guess I'll refer to the ESFP shadow of the INTJ, because that's the shadow function theory a lot of people go to when they're talking about that. And do I ever act like an ESFP? I say yes. If I'm ever in my shadow or in my grip, it's very possible for me to act like that and act more so on my extroverted sensing more so than my introverted intuition. I like my alcohol. That's my guilty extroverted sensing pleasure. So I like to, when I wind down at night, I become an ESFP. That's the, like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night when I'm having my tequila sunrise because I'm an adult. I can act like an ESFP. But thanks for asking that question. There's a lot of ways to interpret that question, so that's the best answer I could give with the information given. All right, thank you. All right, Ken Leong Fong, I hope I pronounced that right, sorry if I didn't, asks, I'm an INTJ, but I want to be more sociable, maybe even appear like an ENTJ to others. Since the functions are so similar, can I just remove the filter on everything I say and bam, I'm instantly an ENTJ? Or maybe instead of removing my filter, should I just be more honest with people? It doesn't exactly work like that. Technically, INTJs and ENTJs can be considered somewhat of the same type because they do share all of the same cognitive functions, but with the primary pair switched. Of all of the things that can switch in your personality type, most people will say the EI axis is the only one that can truly switch. So an INTJ with enough work could become an ENTJ, or an ENTJ who became a recluse could become an INTJ. But for the most part, usually you're going to have your strengths. An INTJ is a perceiving type, where an ENTJ is a judging type. And as a perceiving type, you should focus on what you do best, and that's receiving information from the outside world and then processing it through your introverted intuition. You shouldn't worry about judging the external world or being, open and outgoing and commanding. That isn't to say INTJs can't be outgoing, and that's one myth, is that introverted dominant function types are not extroverted. I have seen many INTPs, INTJs, ISFJs who are outgoing. And the EI axis isn't the only thing that defines that. It really is up to you. If you want to be more outgoing, you have to find a way to do it comfortably. I will say that you should look into sensory anxiety as an INTJ, because that can be something that's very stressful for the introverted intuitive dominant type. And a lot of people, especially younger INTJs, confuse this with social anxiety. I used to think when I was young I had social anxiety. I do not. I don't care in the slightest what people think about me. I had sensory anxiety. I hope you can find out and make yourself more sociable, but it really is something you as an individual have to work on. It is less so focused on your cognitive stack than how you as a person interact with the world. All right, thanks for asking that question. All right, as of the time that I'm making this video, that is all the questions that were shown on the comment section of the video. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating in this Ask Me Anything. If I missed your question by a couple of hours, I truly am sorry. I might do another AMA sometime down the road. So again, this is all because of 100 subscribers. This is all because of you all, and I'm really glad that you enjoy watching and interacting with my videos. Somewhere down the road, I plan to do more difference videos. Of course, people really like those ones, so I'm going to keep doing them. Probably, my goal is to have a lot of these similar type differences, such as ENFP, INFP, I'll probably do somewhere here in the next month or so. I'm planning to do about a video every week, or maybe a video every 2 weeks. I do work full time and I do live with a child in the house. I only get about 2 hours for recording a day if I'm lucky. And thank you all for tuning in. This is Asura at Asura MBTI. Have a good one.